All right, so welcome to what I like to call the State of the DC Union. This is going to be presented by myself, Mario Francisco Robles of Superman on Film, and I'm joined today by Bill Jett Ramey of Batman on Film for a little world's finest crossover here to discuss all the craziness going on in the DC Union. How's everything going with you, Bill, so far before we get started on all the geeky stuff?
Oh, all good down
Yeah,
here. Um,
life in Texas
little
treating you good? No hurricanes,
it,
no the weird
no, it
stuff
was a
going on.
little cold and rainy this morning, but I I was perfectly happy with that after hot as hell summer. So I'm not going to
Yeah,
complain.
yeah. It's been kind of fun watching you sort of settle into your new digs slowly but surely over
Yeah,
these last 2 years. Yeah, you
yeah,
post updates of how your bat cave is coming together and all your cool
yeah,
memorabilia in your studio. I'm like, I got to
yeah,
get something like that going for
yeah,
myself over here. But
yeah.
all
My
right, good.
my
Well,
wife, yeah, my wife is not. She indulges me or allows me to do this,
the
but
announcer, yeah.
yeah, the announcer Rachel, but I always something will show up, that I've
Yeah.
ordered, and she's like, "That better not be another toy." I said, "That's an action figure, or that's a collectible. It's not a toy." So,
That's hilarious. Yeah. Okay. So look, listen. We're grown boys with our toys, and our wives just have to get used to that sort of thing.
yes, yes,
So
she has been good letting me do this for. Well,
good.
Batman on Film is almost 25 years. We've been married 22, so yeah, she's been through most
Wow.
of it. Yeah.
Since you're mentioning that, I do kind of have to just point out here. I want to thank you, just flat out here on the air for inspiring me to do the Superman on film journey. Because really, what you've been doing with Batman, your love of Batman, and the way you've
Hmm.
committed yourself to covering his projects, and the way that like that's the main thing you focus on. It's your primary
Yes.
love, and you give that all your energy. That's really what opened my eyes up to being like, you know what? I love Superman the way Bill
Hmm.
loves Batman. So I should really be, trying to do something similar to that. I loved what you're doing, the community you've built, all the passionate fans who get together to discuss all things Dark Knight with you. And I'm like, if I could build a community like that of Superman fans, that'd be the most amazing thing ever. So I just want to thank you, by the way, for
Well,
inspiring Superman on
thank you
film
for
to be a
that.
thing.
Thank you
Yeah.
for that. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. I really respect your opinions on everything too, which is why these last few months with everything going on, I'm like, I got to get Bill on here to talk about some of this stuff. So I'm going to walk us through some of the chronological major changes that have taken place since you and I last spoke, because it's been a lot of
Hmm.
stuff. DC's kind of pulled like a 180 in a lot of ways. And I
Hmm.
kind of want to just get your read on each thing as we go and kind of bring us into the present day. All right. Because, like, to recap, the last time we spoke, things were still firmly in the sort of Walter Hamada stewardship with the philosophy of we're no longer doing the shared universe thing. We're focusing more on the multiverse. We want to bring in filmmakers who could tell their own unique standalone stories. We're not worried about making everything mesh and connect. And if anything, now we're trying to separate everyone and tell their own little individual stories. And I know you loved that for the Batman, and I know you've
Hmm.
appreciated that approach in general. So when a few months back, the word came out that with Warner Brothers Discovery now calling the shots, David Zaslav seems to want to put together a team to create a 10-year plan, like a cohesive, coherent 10-year plan for DC on film that will somewhat take its cues from Marvel and from Pixar and from the models over there at Disney. So let's just start right there. When you heard about a 10-year plan and a team being assembled, what was your first thought on that?
Um, Heard this before. You know, um,
Yeah,
there's been so many different approaches and changes and announcements that I am just
yeah,
in. I am. I'll cool, but I'm not going to get upset, or nor am I going to get overly excited. I'll just when it happens, it happens. If it happens, it happens, and
yeah.
then I'll deal with it. But I
So you,
focus
yeah,
on the
so you
things
heard
that are
that.
concrete. Yeah.
Yeah, you heard that and you're like, I'm gonna wait and see because there've been lots of
Yeah.
false starts and weird promises and all that, right?
100%.
Okay.
Yes.
So you went wait and see. And yeah, like, because one part of that announcement seemed to signal that we are going to go back to a more shared, everything is kind of coherent and working together kind of thing. But another way to look at that announcement, or that report, I should say, is that also they're going to start taking more stock of quality control. That they seem to like, they have a vision for what they want DC to be, and things that didn't fit into that were going to get cut. And that was the very next thing that happened, because right after they announced the 10-year plan, they canceled Batgirl.
Hmm.
And while I've seen some of your reactions to that online, I just want to get here on the record. How did you feel when you heard that Batgirl was going to feature Michael Keaton's Batman? It was going to be set there within the Batman world,
Hmm.
in that lore and that mythology you love so much. When you heard that Leslie Grace's Batgirl was never to see the light of day, how'd you feel about that?
This wasn't a project that I really was excited for.
Yeah,
I love Batman, but I'm not a huge fan of the Batman sidekicks. So,
yeah,
but I was excited to see Michael Keaton
yeah,
in it, as opposed to just being in the Flash. So I get the reasoning from a business standpoint that it was made for television for HBO Max, and then they wanted to put it on the big screen, and it was like in this gray area where it was not good enough to be a big screen picture, but
yeah,
it was they pumped more money into it to make it, bigger than it was originally planned, but they would have to spend more to make it theatrical ready, and they just decided to cut it. I get that.
yeah,
On the other hand, I think it sucks for the filmmakers and the cast and everybody that worked on it to go.
yeah,
I have never seen that. I've seen Superman Lives get to the point where it was about to start filming.
yep,
I mean, like literally about to start filming, and they sent it in turnaround. I've seen, the Justice League Mortal thing
yeah,
almost make it that far and then get canned. But I don't remember, not in this genre that I've covered, that a film was basically had been completed. Principal photography was done. They were in
yeah.
post, and then they just, cut it. So
Yeah, no,
that
that
was, yeah.
I was gonna say that is pretty unprecedented. Like when I think
Hmm.
about it too, when I try to dive into all the different scenarios I've covered over the years and followed also, like I can't think of a movie that was completely finished in the
Yeah.
can, ready to screen, just needing finishing touches, and the studio deciding we don't want anything to do with this. Not only are we not going to release this in theaters, we don't even want it
Hmm.
on a streaming device. We don't want this seen anywhere. Uh, I don't know. Do you think it's possible too that it was a terrible movie?
Yes.
Because I feel like that had to be part of it.
I think it was not. I had heard it was not very good. That it was had a very, and no offense to the CW, but it has
Yeah,
a very CW vibe.
gotcha.
Um, it was just a notch above that stuff. It played like a CW pilot almost. So
Yeah,
it just
yeah.
wasn't. Yeah.
That doesn't really surprise me because honestly, as soon as they showed the picture of her in the suit, like the big
Hmm.
official promo still, I saw the costume and I'm like, this looks like CW. This looks like,
Hmm.
and not good CW, right? Because there's Superman and Lois, which is
Yeah.
kind of at a different tier. This looks
Hmm.
like pre Superman and Lois CW. No, thank you. So therefore, when that got canceled a few months later, I'm like, I think I kind of saw that coming because that did not look
Yeah.
like it was going to be worth a lot of people's time. Hate
Yeah.
to say. And maybe Leslie Grace will get a chance again because I feel bad for her. She
Yes.
thought she was going to be Batgirl, and then really like the first cinematic Batgirl since Alicia Silverstone, with a chance to start her own real franchise, and it's gone. So maybe
Yeah.
she'll get a chance.
Yeah. For those folks, I feel bad for, but
Yeah,
I'm with you.
yeah. So all right. So shortly after that news came out, people started wondering, well, what's going on with Michael Keaton, right? Because under the Hamada verse, under the Hamada sort of authority, it seemed like they were going to be bringing in OG Batman from the Burton films, the Michael Keaton
Yes.
Batman, to essentially replace Batfleck because Ben Affleck didn't
Yes.
want to be Batman anymore. And yet, if we're going to continue on with some of these characters, right? If we're going to have Ezra Miller's Flash, if we're going to have Jason Momoa's Aquaman, Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman, and we're going to need some kind of a Batman around. So they decided we're going to go old school. We're going to do a multiverse thing. We're going to bring Michael Keaton's Batman into the fray, and he will now be the Batman in whatever sort of DC shared world there seems to be.
Mm-hmm.
And that seemed to be the philosophy at the time. But then they canceled Batgirl, which would have been his follow-up to the Flash, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then there's all this weirdness with the Aquaman 2 Batman cameo, which, to recap, it sounds like Michael Keaton had shot a Batman cameo for
Mm-hmm.
Aquaman, and when they tested it or whatever, people were very sort of thrown off by that. Probably because they hadn't seen the Flash and seen him reintroduced. I'm just thinking, but they were thrown off by that. And apparently, Ben Affleck was asked back to don one of his Bruce Wayne suits and shoot his own version of the cameo. And
Mm-hmm.
that got all kinds of people talking because first Jason Momoa posted a thing on Instagram showing him back, which people were very shocked to see Affleck back in Bruce Wayne mode after,
Mm-hmm.
we thought the Zack Snyder's Justice League thing was a nice little favor and his swan song. But here he is in a movie that's coming out next year, still playing Bruce Wayne. So that came out of nowhere. And then you had Jason Momoa on a red carpet like a week or two later, basically saying he's back. Ben's back, making it sound like it's not just for that one cameo. So let's kind of pause right there with that period in time where Affleck seems to be back in the fray. He's playing Batman in a movie we're not seeing for over a year. So even as far as 2023, fans are going to see his face and associate him with Bruce Wayne. Uh, how did you feel about hearing any of that Ben's back stuff with Aquaman? Yeah, you're over it.
I look. He made a big to do with the article about how the Flash was really a nice way for him to segue out of the role, and was really happy with it, and went on and on about how he didn't enjoy anything about playing Batman after BVS, essentially. So, and then, to come back, I've heard there's been some conflicting things I've heard. I've heard that, when they switched the release dates, that they had, and Aquaman 2 was coming out before the Flash, then they had to redo that scene with Affleck that Keaton had shot.
Yeah.
And did also hear, like you said, about the confusion, which to me, look, if a movie's good, people are going to go see it. They really don't get, the general audience doesn't really get caught up in all that stuff. I've also heard that the Flash's ending has not been changed from as it was originally planned, which, as you said, would have left it where in this reconfigured DC world after the shenanigans of the Flash, that Michael Keaton's Batman has been Batman the entire time in that timeline, in that reality. So
Yeah.
I guess we'll wait and see. If he comes back, I whispered to me that it's more of like what these little extended cameos.
Gotcha.
Not
Yeah.
not a not a the investment with solo Batman is with Matt Reeves in the
Yep.
Batman world, and so they're not going to do a Ben Affleck Batman solo film,
Which makes
or a
sense to me,
or a
Yeah.
Keaton one for that matter, to
Yeah.
be perfectly fair with
No
both.
solo
So
Batmans out of Pattinson.
yeah,
I agree with that. I think that would be very confusing. I think some fans got a little overzealous when they heard
hmm
about Affleck being there for Aquaman. I started
yeah,
started seeing, the usual wide rumors that his
yeah,
solo movie's back. And We're
Yeah.
going to see that Deathstroke thing he wanted to do with Joe Manganiello. I'm like, no, we're not, people. If he's back in any kind of capacity, it's for extended cameos and these kinds
Yes.
of things. But even
Absolutely.
still, the word on the street seems to be that it is just we're going to get some limited Batfleck return action
Mhm.
maybe next year, but that Michael Keaton, like they do seem to be moving forward with with the concept that Michael Keaton's Batman will be the one that is the main DCU
Mhm.
Batman moving forward. um Now, over on my end of things, around this
Yeah.
time, right, they're talking about Batman returning, but that was
Mhm.
also around the time we started hearing about Henry Cavill and whispers of Henry Cavill's Superman potentially showing up in
Mhm.
Black Adam. This was a couple months ago. And now
Yeah.
we know that Henry
Mhm.
Cavill has officially returned to the role of Superman. He showed up in Black Adam. The studio is taking pitches for a Man of Steel sequel. He's
Mhm.
presumably going to show up in cameos in some of these other big DCU projects coming up
Mhm.
over the next year or two. So Affleck may get a limited return, but it looks like we're getting a Henry Cavill return. And I want to just get your take on that because I know that you always use that term. I borderline loved Man of Steel, right?
I
And we've
do.
had that
Yes.
a lot over the years.
Yes.
And we've talked about how Henry got the raw end of the deal in all this because he
Yep.
was a good Superman and he was
Yep.
given a promising start. And then
Yep.
from there, everything went to hell.
Yep.
So, when you hear now that he's coming back and he's going to get a chance to essentially like redeem his Superman and continue his Superman
Mhm.
onward, how did you feel about that?
I like as you said, I do borderline love Man of Steel.
Yeah.
I was one who defended the film in
Yeah.
2013. I was in that group, in that camp,
Yeah.
because people have, with some, revisionist history, have forgotten that this wasn't some beloved film amongst fans, and
Yeah.
there was a lot of complaints about
Oh,
the
no, for
creative
sure.
decisions with Man of Steel. I
Yeah.
really liked it. I think Cavill was a great Superman. I 100% think he got the short end of the stick. They should have made a Man of Steel 2. Man of Steel teed it up perfectly at the end with Welcome to the Planet line, and then they go
Yeah.
with BBS, and the
Yeah.
characterization of Superman was it was terrible, and from that point on, I know this will be controversial, but I think the most Superman he ever got to be was at the end of Justice League 17. And
Ah,
and
that is controversial. Yeah.
and I mean, he was Superman, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
It
I
wasn't
know. No, he was
not
recognizable Superman in that. Yeah.
yeah, not to get into all the, Zack Snyder version of it and how that ended with evil Superman. I'm just not going to get into it. But so I'm just
Yeah.
thinking, really, with all that. But I also have said, like, it's almost like it's 6 years too late. You know,
Yeah.
it's almost
Yeah.
that uh, it's been by the time a solo Superman film with Cavill comes out. I mean, it's going to be close to 15.
Over. Yeah.
Yeah,
It'll
15
be over
years
10
after.
years.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because next year is 10.
10-year anniversary. Yeah.
That's at 15. I meant like 12 to 13. I mean, that film is probably 3 years away if they're just now taking
Yeah.
pitches.
I
So
agree.
I am in I'll believe it when I see it mode. I hope
Also, even
I
with
hope it
that, you have
happens.
skepticism. Yeah.
Yes, I
So
hope it
even with that, you're
happens.
skeptical.
I
Interesting.
don't
Okay.
look if you're going to bring him back, then
Yeah.
you got to do um, a Superman film with him. And I
Yes.
mean Superman, okay, where
Yes.
he's
Yes.
Superman as we all know and love, and soft reboot it, do a Batman Forever type thing.
Yeah.
Ignore what you want to
I think
ignore.
that's what they're going to do. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think they're going to just sort of like dive straight in. They're not going to spend a lot of time trying to
yeah,
explain the continuity and what happened and what hasn't
yes,
happened.
with
It's
you
kind of like no
100%.
matter which, like no matter which version of
Hmm.
Justice League you want to go off of, he's back from the dead. He's a
Yeah,
more hopeful and optimistic version of the character. And now we're just going to move on. You know, I have a
Yeah.
feeling they're just going to do something like that, kind of like Aquaman too. Aquaman,
Yeah.
you know, James Wan didn't spend a lot of time focusing
Mm-mm.
on let's discuss what happened in Justice League and
Nope.
BVS. He just told
Yeah.
his own Aquaman story with his own tone and his own style,
Yeah.
and it made $1 billion. So if they're smart, they're going to do something similar to that with Superman. Um, yeah, I just when it comes to all of these recent turns, you know, the next big one that happened, obviously,
Let me add
was
this real
oh,
quick about
go ahead.
Superman before you move on.
Yes.
I will say
Yeah.
I don't want him to become cameo man. Then there's no point of him coming back.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
I wasn't thrilled that he showed up in Black Adam. I think that should have been. I mean, the cameo should have been with Captain Marvel / Shazam. I mean, Black
Yeah.
Adam is a Captain
He
Marvel /
is.
Shazam character.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it also again, really, we're going to bring Cavill, and it's just this cameo, and I think he deserves more than that. I think he
And
deserves
I
more
bet
than that. So
yeah,
that's why I say, he can't be just become cameo man. You know?
I agree. I agree. And that's why too, like back in 2018, the rumor at the time, like, you know, Collider came out with something in April of that year, a few months after Justice League had come out, that there was some sort of plan and it was just cameos and there was no solo Superman movie in the cards.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, what a terrible plan. Like, I get it. You want to have a sort of uniform Superman who could, you know, be
Yeah.
in, you know, just have his presence felt in different projects, but you got to give him his own proper movie, you know, and
And
it sounds like we're going to get that.
I to be fair to Warner Brothers, I get the apprehension. This under the old
Yeah.
regime. I get
Yeah.
the apprehension of um, doing another solo Superman film with Cavill because of the reaction that Man of Steel got, and then especially
And there's
BVS
baggage there.
Justice League and so forth. I 100% get their apprehension.
Yeah.
Um, but of course, it was the regime before that that got them in that position in the first place by not making a sequel to
Yeah.
Man of Steel. So yeah,
Well,
it just yeah
we should kind of just focus in on that for a second. How
yeah
regime changes have evolved DC several times over these last 6 years,
hmm
right? Because
yeah
there was essentially like one regime going into BVS out of Man of
hmm
Steel, where Greg Silverman, that producer at the time who had a lot more sway at that time, he's
yeah
come out and said in later podcasts that he was the one who sort of commissioned Snyder after Man of Steel to go and tell an even darker, more, you know, one of these kinds of stories again, to try to
hmm
differentiate them from Marvel. He's like, oh, and let's tell a sort of twisted, dark, mythological, complicated superhero epic. And that's what he asked for. And then we know that by the end of that film's production, the people in charge were like, we don't want that anymore. You know,
yeah
like, and they
yeah
ended up, you know, Silverman was gone and Jeff Johns and Diane Nelson was brought in. So that was the first regime change of the last 7 years. And
hmm
that regime change brought with it all kinds of sweeping changes to Justice League and to the slate and to what was going to happen next. And that regime would never have released Zack Snyder's Justice League and was ready to
hmm
just move forward in a new direction.
yeah
Then Warner Brothers and AT&T merge and the
yeah
Warner Media regime change occurs. And suddenly now the previous people who were in power are no longer in power. And the people who are in power are more focused on streaming and HBO Max and
hmm
this and that. So they release Zack Snyder's Justice League because it's new bosses, new philosophies, new whatever. And under this regime, they release Zack Snyder's Justice League. They spend 3 years beating the drum about the multiverse, and none of this stuff has to be connected anymore in the multiverse. And now we have another regime change coming in who's going, forget the multiverse thing. We want something more coherent, and we are going to bring back some former people. And, you know, just like with each of these changes, the new bosses come in and kind of undo what the previous bosses did.
hmm
And to me, that's one of the interesting things about this like slow moving reboot of DC that you and I have been witnessing now over the last 7 years. And I can kind of, I guess I can see why you're sort of skeptical and why you're like, I'm going
Mhm.
to wait and see because there might be another merger next year and that boss will decide they want to do
Yeah.
it differently,
I
you know?
mean, the trades have speculated was, I mean, like what I call educated speculation that um, it's just a matter of time before Discovery sells off
Yeah.
Warner Brothers, and it could be happening again. But I do appreciate the fact that I think they do recognize that there is a place in DC, the DC world, outside of comics, film, TV, whatever, to do stuff like the Batman and Joker. And I'd like to see that. Well, it obviously is going to continue to build the whole universe from the Batman, but I would
Yeah.
like to see other characters, non-Batman characters, get this quote unquote black label treatment. You know, DC has black label comics, which are essentially, you know, standalone, their own thing type, a little bit more darker, mature stories. But
Yeah.
that's just
Elseworld tales.
that.
Yeah.
Um, do you know? I consider Joker and the Batman to be like the black label of DC on film. And there was even a
Yeah.
talk. I think Jeff Johns at one time said they were going to have a banner for these type of movies because there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of DC characters that would, you know, would work
Benefit from that
well,
approach. Yeah.
that approach. And it's appealing to filmmakers to come in, and they don't
Yeah.
have to be bound by continuity and what's going on in other films and whatnot. And there seems to be, they want to also still they want to be able, even if the films that connect technically, they want strong filmmakers to come in and be able to do their own thing with those as well. Like James Wan with Aquaman is a great
Yeah.
example. Gunn with the Suicide Squad. And, you
Yep.
know, speaking of James Gunn, I know you're going to get to him here in a second, I'm
Yeah. That's
sure.
the next thing. Yeah.
Yeah. See, segue. I'm the segue man.
So you want to do it? You want to talk about the big news this week, the big shocker?
If that's where you're going, that's yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because this is, for guys like you and I who love these
Hmm.
characters and have been analyzing the production of these movies over the years, this is pretty big news that DC
Yeah.
has new bosses and their names we're actually quite familiar with if you've been following DC these last few
Hmm.
years. But yes, so we've got James Gunn and we've got Peter Safran as the co-heads of what is now called the newly formed DC Studios. It's no
Hmm.
longer DC Films and DC Entertainment and DC this. They're trying to get everything consolidated under DC Studios, a la what Marvel did 14 years ago when they formed Marvel Studios and they're like, now we are solely in charge of our destiny. There's not a million cooks in the kitchen. There's just Marvel Studios. So
Yeah.
DC is attempting a similar thing. And the power structure is going to be unique in that we're going to have James Gunn as the creative head, kind of the person looking at the characters
Hmm.
and the storylines and kind of deciding what he wants the DC universe to sort of, what kind of story, what kind of look and feel he wants for the DC universe. While Peter Safran is doing more the business side of things. He's the producer. He's locking up the contracts. He's getting the necessary talent, securing the
Hmm.
filming locations. He handles the business. James Gunn
Hmm.
handles the creative. So just that on its own, what did you think when that news came out on Tuesday afternoon?
I am a fan of James Gunn quite a
Yeah.
bit. I thought the Suicide Squad was some of the best DC stuff, and Peacemaker. I thought they
Yes.
were some of the I thought it was some of the best DC stuff Warner Brothers has produced since the Dark Knight trilogy. That with
Wow,
Batman,
that
the
is
Batman
high
and Matt
praise.
Reeves,
Yeah. Yeah.
the Watchmen series on HBO Max is excellent.
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
I mean, those are great. So I was happy with that, and I'm familiar with Safran just because of the producing stuff he's done of late
Yeah.
with DC and Warner
I
Brothers.
think he's been there since 2018 with Aquaman. He's
Yeah,
kind of had a hand in
yeah,
all of his last 4 years. Yeah.
and I think he came up with one. He was like part of the Conjuring
Yeah. He
universe,
came
New
from The
Line.
Conjuring. Exactly.
Yeah, and
Yes.
I'm a fan of those New Line films. But so I was like, yeah, this sounds good to me. I thought, having a director be in a producing role like that would probably, I thought, and this is my ignorance of the business. I would like,
Yeah.
yeah, that, he's probably like a director's director, and you won't, I'm a director, I'm a filmmaker too, so I'll be
I'm
giving
not going to
you,
step on your toes.
yeah, yeah. And so I reached out to some people who know, which I try to do, and I got kind of a mixed thing about it. It was like, some folks were saying, yeah, this is great. It's a great move. And some, on the other half, it was like, don't think a director should be in that type of role. They'd
Hmm.
rather
Because
a
he might be too
a
opinionated.
producer, maybe, yes, and
Yeah.
exactly. And I even read in the Variety article that they were actually going to go with, it would probably be more Safran's job than Gunn's to do the schmoozing with the filmmakers that they want to bring
Interesting.
in,
Yeah.
as opposed to, because they gave an example, like, would Todd Phillips, that's another guy. I think Joker, I throw Joker in there. It's some of the best stuff DC's done
Yeah.
at Warner
Yeah.
Brothers, and since Dark Knight trilogy. Would Todd Phillips, would he have done Joker 2 with James Gunn in charge of DC? That was
Yeah.
what, that was the point they were making. So that would be more Safran's job. And I went, okay, I can get that. I get that. I try to educate myself with this stuff. So we'll
Yeah.
see how it plays out. I'm happy with it. Mainly because it seems like, well, and to be fair, they did have a plan with Hamada, and Hamada had some successes. So I know he gets a lot of grief online for whatever, nonsense. But
I'm not
I
into.
mean,
I don't add to any of that. So much of the
yeah,
grief he gets is like ridiculous, and people don't understand the time frame of
yes,
things, that he wasn't
yes,
around even for some of the things he's
yeah,
accused of. And the
yes,
things that he's accused of have never been proven. And on the contrary, investigations basically absolved him of things.
yeah.
But people just want to, Walter, I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, it's just clear they had success under him. I think they
Yes.
would have liked him to stay. I think the Batgirl thing we talked about earlier, I mean, um, he helped bring that, develop that, and is a um, very, I don't know, protective is the word, but he backs up his projects and the talent, and was really upset with the film getting canned. So I think that was kind of the nail in the coffin as far
Yeah.
as him even possibly staying on. But anyway,
Yeah.
I'm anxious to see where they go. I'm glad they're also, they want to be in the Matt Reeves business. They gave him they signed a big deal, and he moved, his home is now Warner Brothers, and they're allowing him to create what I call the Batman universe. So,
Yeah.
and Todd and I've said many times, Warner Brothers they need to be in the business with Todd Phillips and Matt Reeves and James Gunn and James Wan, and these strong filmmakers.
Visionary
Need to,
storytellers.
yes,
Yeah.
and that is Warner Brothers history. Their legacy is being a filmmaker studio, and I hope it remains that way going
Yeah.
forward, because they lost Nolan, and they
Yeah.
what's his name, Zaslav, Mr. Zaslav, didn't say didn't have too nice of words about the future of Clint Eastwood,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
God's sake, at Warner Brothers. So uh, who knows.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you too,
Hmm.
because I know in the past you've been very anti shared universe stuff. We've had lots of conversations about that, even back
Hmm.
around Justice League time. You don't want to see
Hmm.
Batman fighting aliens. You
Hmm.
don't,
Yes,
you think Batman exists best in a world on his own. And that is where
yes,
he is now, in a world
yeah.
on his own. But, I get the sense with the lead up to Black Adam and a lot of the stuff that The Rock has been saying in interviews about getting all these characters to interact with each other and giving the fans what they want and yada yada yada. And
Hmm.
obviously he's setting up like larger world stuff. Did you see Black Adam yet?
I have not.
Oh,
I
wow.
I
So
did not. I did not go. I had a reviewer
yeah,
go in my place.
so you skipped it.
I lost a little interest in that film along
And
the
is it
way.
because of this stuff? Because of the shared universe
Yeah.
stuff? Because of
No,
the
no, not
change
really
in
because of the shared
philosophy?
universe stuff. It was look, I am a fan of like golden age comic stuff, DC
Yeah.
specifically, and I like the Justice Society, so I did want to see that part of it.
Yeah, I remember that. That's
It
why I'm surprised you haven't seen it yet.
it was it was it was just this I guess it was more, and I'm no hater of Dwayne Johnson. It was just it would seem like that he was becoming the tail that was wagging the dog of DC, and a lot of
Yeah.
the stuff you said, and I just, I knew about the Cavill thing for a while, and
Yeah.
I'm like, going back to what we talked about earlier. Okay, here he is again. He bring him back, and it's a cameo, and
Yeah.
then I mean, I'm got so tired of this Black Adam versus Superman idea because I mean, the last time Cavill was in a versus film didn't work out very well,
No, I agree. And
and
that's why
and
they
for
have to
him.
tread very carefully here. Yeah.
Yes. And
Yes.
as I said, Black Adam is a Captain Marvel / Shazam character.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be like having Joker show up in a Green Lantern movie,
Yeah.
So
But
I
you
just
see,
I got annoyed by that, and I just lost interest. And I'm like, do I really want to? I'll see it at some point, but I'm not. I'm just gonna
yeah.
skip this press screening. So,
You
but
see,
anyway,
I,
yeah,
I think it's kind of funny that like you're a Batman guy and I'm a
yeah,
Superman guy, and even the way we look at all of this recent news
hmm,
seems to be informed by our favorite characters. Because I feel like Batman, traditionally a loner, wants to be
hmm,
left alone. He has trust issues. He doesn't, Batman operates best on his own,
hmm,
kind of like the way you feel Batman
yeah,
operates in movies best on his own, and you don't want him surrounded by other characters and you're put
hmm.
off by all that stuff.
That's
Then
true.
you got me, the Superman guy, who's more hopeful and optimistic and thinks, no, it's better. The more the merrier. Let's work together. Let's make a larger tapestry, and this is all going to be great. And I think it's funny that when I'm reading the Black Adam hype, I'm getting more and more excited about this
Yeah,
growing DC universe and the fact that like mainstream pop culture, they love The Rock. The Rock is one of the most
yeah,
successful
yeah.
actors in the world. So if he's
Sure.
out there as a cheerleader with DC pom poms and people are cheering him on, I see that as like, yeah, DC is
Hmm.
moving up in the public eye. This megawatt superstar is out there beating the drum for Superman's return and for the DC universe to finally be up on top where it should be. Because it
Yeah,
kind of
hey,
has
make
been.
make no mistake about it.
Yeah,
Cavill is that is because of Dwayne Johnson. Cavill being
yeah,
in Black Adam, and probably him getting another chance at a solo Superman film.
yeah,
I mean, that's just straight up fact. So we'll see
absolutely,
again.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, so I just think it's funny that like, the to me the future seems so promising between, Black Adam kind of reopening the DC universe again, showing connections to Superman. Spoiler alert, but Intergang is involved in there too. Like it's I'm very, when I look at what's coming ahead between Black Adam and Shazam and Aquaman and all the stuff that the Flash is going to do, and having Henry back, and Zaslav wanting a 10-year plan, and them kind of focusing on the mainline characters again, where, in all the press releases, everyone's talking about Superman first, by the way, but Superman, Batman, Aquaman, Wonder Woman, like this renewed focus on building out a DC universe and having a team working together to tell the stories. I know it's very Marvel-y and it could get
It-
hairy with the creative license that the filmmakers can have, which I know is very important to you. But when I look at where we're at right now, I haven't been this excited for where DC is going next in years, 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 years. And meanwhile, I know that like you've said, like, I'm not excited for anything happening in DC other than what's happening in the Batman world.
Pretty
Am I
much.
quoting you
I mean,
correctly? Yeah.
yeah. I would say I am. My main focus, I mean, it is Batman on film, and I am a Batman
Yeah.
fan, is the
Yeah, of course.
Batman
Yeah.
universe. I am a DC guy. I did grow up, a DC kid, but by
Yeah.
by osmosis and default because Batman was a DC character, but
Yeah.
um, and I do like Superman quite a bit. But I'm just it's been so much nonsense over the last
Yeah.
that's what almost 10 years, I should say, since
Yeah.
2013, that I have just I don't get overly excited, but
Yeah.
I don't like go. Yeah, I'm not saying it. Oh, this all looks like it sucks. That's not. I'm not doing that
Yeah.
either. I'll
But
see
you're
it.
just saying it's not your taste. It's not your
It's
thing.
not. I'm just not all hyped up for it. And a lot of the things they've discussed, a lot of this stuff won't happen. I wish they temper it a little bit, even with the stuff they've announced with the Matt Reeves thing, like
Yeah.
uh, Scarecrow and doing these
And
HBO Max
Clayface.
stuff,
Yeah.
Clayface, and a lot of that's just spitballing ideas, and that's what they
Yeah.
do. So a lot of that's not going to happen. But yeah, I still support it. I'm just not overly excited about it. Like, oh, I can't wait. I just can't. I'm not just not. But the Batman stuff, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
like that about it. So, um,
And I feel like I bring this up almost every time you're on
mhm.
but I feel like I'm gonna bring it up now in this context because it is just so unique, the scenario that Batman is in particular. Because especially now with Henry back, we have all the other members of the Justice League basically still in play and will be gracing the screen over the next year and a half, depending on, how everything plays out. And it's officially like we're just missing Ben Affleck's Batman, you know?
Mhm.
And it's one thing when they were going to recast Superman and reboot him, and they were also going to, we had Batman happening and its own thing, and everything was a little more separate. But with Henry back and with Ezra still around and everything, it's like it's really just that flick that's missing. And I always think about like if I'm the new incoming co-head trying to make a DC universe that seems coherent, it's got to stick in my craw real bad that I can't really touch any Batman stories, And it just makes
Mhm.
me wonder if throughout the course of all of these next, there's going to be lots of meetings and planning and this and that. Uh, I'm curious, would you basically burn your town down if they find a way to bring Battinson into the main DCU fold
Yes.
so that they're all together?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I
What's the
would.
name of your town?
Where I live,
Yeah.
Dallas. So
Oh, so Dallas would just be that'd be the end if they did that, huh?
I would take to Burbank, California, and bring pitchforks and torches. Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I don't know why, because I thought of it. I'm like, listen, James Gunn is a geeky, deep comic book type
Mhm.
of guy. Matt Reeves is another very creative, and when it comes to Batman and that lore, he knows it very well.
Yes.
I'm like, I could see Gunn and Reeves spitballing and being like, how do we make all this work so you're not just totally on an island? And I'm like, God, if
Reeves
they
has
did that,
said that he
yeah,
he wants this world to be its own world.
yeah,
That he
yeah,
did not
yeah,
want it part of DC world, and I get
yeah,
that as a Batman fan. I
yeah,
think I think in this day and age, uh, 20 years ago, no. But I think in this day and age, there can two Batman can coexist. That was the plan anyway, whether it
yeah,
be um, Keaton and Pattinson at the same time. Even if it's, I look, I'm just over the whole Affleck thing. I'm in, I'm
yeah. I
out,
know,
I'm not
I
doing
know.
it.
You and I have been on that ride for 5 years
Yeah.
already, talking about all that.
But
Yeah,
I mean, if he ends up, as I said, he comes back and it's these cameos as this connected world, the Batman. I don't have any issue with that whatsoever. That's perfectly fine, and you can do
yeah,
what you need to do with Batman in that setting that
yeah.
way. But leave the damn Batman universe. Leave it be.
Leave the damn. Yeah,
Leave it. Yeah, leave it alone. It's perfectly fine the way it is. Yeah.
yeah. There should be a couple of shirts at BOF. Like earlier, you said it's been so much nonsense. I just love that
Yeah.
just as a phrase. It's been so much nonsense.
Am I lying? Am I not
No,
telling the
you are
truth?
not
Yeah.
lying.
Yeah.
Following the leadership and the weird decisions and like making a decision and then doubling down on it and then backtracking on it. But then, like there's been so much stop and go on everything these last 7 years. It's like I just want them to pick a direction and stick to it.
Only thing that worries me is that now you say, okay, we're gonna. It's been freaking 10 years basically, and you're gonna have another 10-year plan. So that's 2 decades. I mean, Henry Cavill's it's 40 or getting. He's almost
yeah,
there.
yeah,
Affleck is my vintage. He's 50 or if
yeah,
he now I say that, but you got Keaton who's 70, so
yeah,
that's
yeah,
beside
yeah.
the point. But
Well,
you've
there it's actually
had
that would be the point, right? He's supposed to be an older Batman,
yeah,
so he
and
could be
you know
70,
what? And I like that. Honestly, I
Yeah,
do like the older Batman. So I have no problem with that. But my thing is really not really their chronological age is that um it's just, are they going to be able to? Are they going to be able to or want to? We're talking about Momoa and all these others as well. Gal, are they going to continue for another decade playing these roles? Where are
yeah,
you headed to? What's the end game? Now, um, I that's and it's always haunted by you know this has been done before with Marvel. You know,
yeah, 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 yeah.
I thought with DC, I think I really thought that to
Thought they
make them
learned a lesson.
unique,
Yeah,
is just to make it unique because the comics are different and they are historically different. Um, is the Matt Reeves approach, the Jane, just make the film.
yeah.
Okay, if it
Tell
if
the
it
best
connects,
story
it
you can
connects. If
tell.
it doesn't, it doesn't. Make the best film you can make and go from there, and not
Yeah,
not worry about everything having to connect and cameos and even the
yeah,
post-credit scenes are so it's redundant. That was a Marvel thing, and I'm
yeah.
not trying to
I
shit
know.
on Marvel at all.
No, I know, but it's yeah.
I
You want
love
DC to be
DC. I
its
want
own
them,
thing and have its own
yeah, I
identity.
want it to be original, you know,
Yeah,
because I love DC and I love when the films do well,
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
like I
Of
said, that's
course.
like when I'm banging the drum here on your show is saying Cavill needs his own damn solo film, not become Mr. Cameo, for goodness
Yeah,
sake. Uh, so I don't want anybody misconstrue my lack of enthusiasm or excitement, not caring about
yeah,
DC doing well. That's two different things altogether.
yeah. But in terms of just your style, your particular cup of tea is not the
Yeah.
stuff being teed up by Dwayne Johnson's Black Adam verse right now,
Yeah, I
right? And that, yeah,
like I want a great Superman film with Cavill, and I don't need, you know, The Rock to show up at the end, or as Black
yeah,
Adam, or I'm trying to or Ben Affleck's Batman cameo. I don't need
yeah.
that some semi fan service to make it
Hmm.
enjoyable for me, or I don't think it needs
Yeah,
it to be a great film. Superman is a great
yeah,
enough character on his own to have his own damn
yeah.
great film, you know?
And kind of circling back to what you said a minute ago,
Yeah.
though, about, the directors being able to just tell good stories. And if it connects, it connects. And if it doesn't, it doesn't, and all that. It got me thinking, though, like James Gunn in particular has already navigated that territory pretty well, if you think about it.
Mhm. Sure.
Because what did he make? The Suicide Squad is technically like a sequel, right, to David Ayer's Suicide Squad.
Mhm.
It has a lot of the carryover characters. There's perhaps I don't even remember if there was a reference to the events of the first film, but it is clearly sort of, following up, but totally pushing in its own direction from there.
Yeah.
And he didn't spend a lot of time in the movie trying to explain the relationship of this one to the previous one.
Mm-mm.
He just took the characters he wanted, put them in a scenario that he wanted to tell, and just pushed forward. And then from there, we went into Peacemaker. And then at the end of Peacemaker, it kind of brought it all back to the original DCEU by having the Justice League show up when you had,
Mhm. Mhm.
Mo and Miller and all them show up. But like he kind
Yeah.
of showed a way, like you could tell your own fresh, phenomenal story
There you
that's
go.
set in this world, but you don't
There
have
you
to be a
go.
slave to the
There you go.
continuity. yeah, and you can kind of pick and choose, and fans will follow you as long as the
Yes.
characters are compelling, as long as the
Yes.
stories are good, the fans will
Preach.
be there. So yeah, so I feel
Yes.
like Gunn is kind of like the
That
perfect leader right now
I'm with you,
for
and that's why Gunn makes me excited for to be part of that part of
yeah.
DC on film because he's done it. He's done what
Yep.
I personally think the route they should go. Okay, don't worry
Yeah, he
about
threaded
don't
that needle perfectly.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Yeah.
he's clearly has a way of saying showing how it can be done, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, all he
And
has to do,
being
if any go ahead.
Oh, no, and he didn't have to, he made his own Suicide Squad movie. He didn't have to try to replicate what David Ayer did.
Yeah. Yeah.
He didn't have to, have a lot of exposition or nods and flashbacks to what
And
happened before.
connective tissue and blah, blah,
He
blah.
just
Yeah.
made the movie he wanted to make, and it was
Yeah.
great. I loved it. I love the
I
Suicide
did. No,
Squad.
I love that too. And Peacemaker,
Yeah.
I think, is one of the most, I put Peacemaker near that Watchmen HBO Max series,
Yes.
just,
Yeah.
taking a DC property and
Mhm.
telling a story that is both, it's got all the comic book trappings, but it actually has a lot of real heart and characterization and things to say. So I think Peacemaker was great. But yeah,
And I
so
do
going,
hope
yeah,
Yeah, I speaking of Peacemaker and Watchmen, I hope that, and we know the Penguin is about to start filming, uh, the Batman spinoff with Colin Farrell. Uh, I don't want them, and I say them, Warner Brothers, Discovery, to ignore that part of DC. Not doing things like Watchmen. I mean, you take the Justice Society and do a Golden Age
yeah,
mini series of it, and do it like
yeah,
in the style of Watchmen, kind of.
yeah,
You're seeing the Penguin is going to be kind of Sopranos, mob type show. I mean,
yeah.
I want them to continue this stuff with HBO Max, the high quality
I think,
DC
yeah,
series.
I think we're going to continue to eat well there because, first of all,
Yeah.
in the announcement of Gunn and Safran's hiring, came like they already started mentioning that they're going to be developing things that are not just for the big screen, but that
Great.
also
Yeah.
have their small screen companion pieces. Like that's one of the qualifications that got Gunn the job, that he did the
Mhm.
Suicide Squad and he gave us Peacemaker, and now there's another
Mhm.
spinoff coming again. So they want that idea, like you have your big screen attraction, and then you
Yeah.
have your follow-ups on the small screen. And Gunn has already shown that. And beyond that, we know that he loves to like dig deep in the comic book lore and find
Mhm.
characters and things that no one's thought of in a long time, and bring them into the present day and put
I
a
mean,
brand new sort of shine on them.
he made
Go ahead.
Starro the Conqueror work
Yeah,
in a film.
yeah, yeah.
He made Polka Dot Man work in a film,
And they actually really worked. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I feel
Yes.
like he's someone who probably has a few crazy DC stories in his head already of books.
Yeah.
And oh my God, we should do a mini series on that. We should
Mhm.
do a thing on that. You know what I mean? Like he seems like the
Yeah.
type who has such a knowledge and an affection for the entire, like, the comic book universe, that I feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, finding those companion pieces, great limited series, high prestige, high budget series like Watchmen and Peacemaker and
I'll
whatnot.
throw in
I think we're
another
gonna
one
get a
that's
lot of that.
great is Doom Patrol. Have you watched Doom Patrol?
I saw the first 2 or 3
Yeah.
episodes, really liked it, but then I fell out of the rhythm and I
Yeah.
never continued. But it looked
That
really
is
good. Is it?
that is a high quality, it didn't have the budget.
Yeah.
The budget is closer to a CW budget,
Gotcha.
but kind of in between, right?
Yeah.
But it is that it I throw that in there, some of the best stuff DC has done. Titans, I'm
See,
not a big fan of
I
Titans,
gotta,
but
yeah, I've heard
Doom
that too.
Patrol,
See,
yeah,
Titans I
yeah,
didn't bother with. Titans I
yeah,
didn't touch, but Doom Patrol I gave a shot back when
yeah,
remember what was that called? The DC Universe app that existed for like
yes, yeah,
15 months or whatever that
yeah,
was. So yeah, I checked out Doom Patrol, but now based on your recommendation, maybe I'll go back and finish it this time.
yes,
They
because
have to
you,
be
I
on
mean,
like what,
you,
season 3 or 4 by now, right?
yeah, and just we mentioned the quirky stuff with Gunn. I mean, there's so much good
Yes,
stuff from DC, Metal
telling you.
Men and you know,
Plastic
uh,
Man.
Booster Gold, Plastic. I mean, there's just so that would fit with these kind of series that necessarily may not want to do a Booster Gold movie, but
Yeah.
a series
Yeah.
would be really great. I
And
think
Gunn
so.
is the guy to
Yeah,
do it. I could you could see him being excited at the prospect of that. You could see a
yeah,
guy like that, like, pitching that and convincing people why this is what we gotta do.
hmm
And who wouldn't
for
listen to
sure.
him?
Yeah,
Right? He did The Guardians, a movie with a talking raccoon and a tree and
yeah,
all this thing. Nobody
yeah.
knew what The Guardians were before that movie
No,
came out, and now
no.
they're one of the biggest things ever. Gunn
Yeah,
has that knack for, like, taking something seemingly rare and obscure and strange and making it embraceable and exciting and relatable. So I really do think DC is in a great place right now. Whether they follow through on the 10-year plan, the shared universe, or they kind of, try to still keep the idea that everything operates on its own, but occasionally merges. However, which way they intend to do this, I am extremely optimistic and excited for where DC's headed next. How are you, how would you characterize yourself at this juncture for the state of DC on film moving forward?
optimistic is a good term.
Yeah.
I am optimistic. Um, my excitement level is not extremely high.
Yeah.
I would like when it gets here. I'm kind of like, okay, if it happens and it gets here, and I see it and I love it, that okay, I'm good. But
Yeah.
I'm not going to get, like I said, there's been so much nonsense
Hung
the
on to
last
lip
10 years.
service.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I am excited for the Batman stuff. So, with Reeves, what's coming.
No, so then I'll leave you with
So
this. Just one last
yeah.
question about, of the things coming aside from the Batman 2, what
hmm
is the DC film you are most looking forward to right now? Of what we already know is kind of on the way.
Probably the Flash. And
Yeah.
and I've weathered the Ezra Miller, um, nonsense,
Yeah.
and the drama.
Yeah.
It's because of Keaton returning and,
And I was gonna say, is it because of what the film is going to do with resetting the timeline, or is it
it's
more
just
to do with
being,
Keaton's return?
I like, in the comics when they do the, like I really liked Flashpoint, um, and then
Yeah.
they're kind of riffing off of Flashpoint here, where
Yeah.
there's different realities and things can change. So I kind of and I'm kind of a sucker for like time travel movies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I liked like Back to the Future and all that stuff. So I'm just the premise to me is interesting, and of course
Yeah.
seeing Keaton back as
Yeah.
Batman again is a big bonus and big something that's exciting. So
Yeah.
I'd say
So
that,
that's
and
the one.
yeah, probably the Flash. Yeah.
So that's the one, and it makes sense too, because that's the one that's going to really kind of be the pivot point that pushes us forward into what is DC on film, what is the DC universe
Yeah.
now, what is still in play, what isn't. Right? We've always been told that that's the film that sort of resets the table.
Mhm.
So it makes sense that that's the one that you're like, I got to see how that goes before
Mhm.
I decide how I feel about what's coming afterward. Right?
Sure. Fair.
So, all right, that makes sense. And the good news is the plan still to have your watch party for The Flash in New York next June?
That is a strong possibility. We're discussing that as we speak. So
I
I
remember
will
you discussed that because
yeah,
The
I
Flash comes
will
out on my birthday, no less, June
yes.
23rd. So if you are
Is
gonna
it?
do a New
Okay.
York
Awesome.
thing, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So if you're gonna do a New York thing, we have
Yeah.
to have the most epic watch party ever.
And
Uh,
next year marks the 25th anniversary of Batman on film,
wow.
2013. So it'll be and
There's
I started the site in June. So
You
June,
mean 2003?
June
Oh, yeah.
uh no, I started the site in June of 1998.
There it is. Okay, yeah.
So 25 years,
Wow.
June. I mean, actually,
Yeah.
June is the actual anniversary month, but we're going to celebrate
Yeah.
I can't believe I've done this for 25 years. Never.
That's amazing. So
Yeah,
that'll be
yeah,
the 25th anniversary. And on top of
yeah.
that, too, the birthday that I'm celebrating, June 23rd,
Yeah.
is a very round number. I'm hitting 40. So I'm
Ah,
entering a new
okay.
decade and gonna see the Flash
You're
and
a
the
you're a
resetting
youngster.
of the DC
Okay.
universe. Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
Youngster. Okay.
Yes. But yes, all right, we did it. This is our state of the DC Union. Bill, thank you so much for coming on
Sure.
and being
Anytime.
part of this crossover event. Why don't you plug your shows? Tell people where they can hear the BOF podcast. What day of the week? What's it called? What do they look
Okay.
for in the podcatchers?
So of course there's just Batman on Film, the website,
Yep.
which, you know, there's comic reviews, all kind of stuff there. Check out that stuff from the guys, please. Shows, I will plug, we have several different versions
Yeah, because
or
you have
several
a
different
few now.
podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, my show is called the Social Hour Podcast, and that's my little show. And we spent the last 2 or 3 months, 3 months, 4 months doing the Batman chapter by chapter, based on
Oh, that's cool.
how the DVD is divided up into chapters, and we covered it. It's probably about 10-minute little blocks of the film, and they talk
Yeah.
about in detail. So we have one last show to do. We've done the whole film. We just did the bonus features, the two I say bonus features, the two extend cut scenes, deleted scenes.
Okay, like the joke
Yeah,
thing.
the
Yeah.
Joker, and then
Okay.
and then we're doing. If you remember, if you watched any of the credits of the Batman, there is a shout out from Matt Reeves to lots of Batman creators from the comics and whatnot. So we are going to do the credits, and we're going to talk about the influence of, for example, Lieber Mayhew is given a shout out. The suit in the Batman was clearly inspired
Yeah.
by
Oh, yeah.
Lee's take on Batman. So we're going to talk about that. And but anyway, just go to Batman on Film, check it out. You can find all the shows and wherever you get your podcasts. So they'll just pop up in the same feed.
Damn right. All right, everyone. This has been the State of the DC Union. Thank you for joining us today. And Bill, I'll have to have you on again soon to talk about the next big developments. And maybe I should pop up on one of your shows pretty soon. We got to talk
Sure.
about
That's
that. I wouldn't mind.
I'll ask
Yeah.
you, is there and I'll plug one last plug. We have a show called Batmanimation, where we talk about Batman and animation. So it's specific episodes of all the different animated Batman series there have
Oh,
been.
that's cool.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and movies aren't excluded. So if there is a certain animated series and an episode that you're fond of and you want to come on and talk about that,
Well,
you're welcome.
let me leave you with this little shocker, because you and I have
Okay.
some text exchanges throughout the year where
Yeah.
a few months back I texted you what you found an unbelievable truth. I told you that I had never read Batman Year One before, and that I was
Yes.
finally reading it, and you were
Yeah.
like, "What? What
Yeah.
have you been doing with your life?" And you were going to suggest me some others. There are key things over the years that I've missed. And if we're talking Batman animation, on that list goes Mask of the Phantasm. I've never
Mm-hmm.
seen it, and everyone tells me it's one of the best Batman
It's one of
things
the
like
best
ever.
Batman films, period. Yes.
Have you done an episode on that yet?
We have not.
All right. So when you do
So
that, when you're getting ready
that's
for that, it'll
interesting.
give me an excuse to watch it, and I'll come on
Yes.
that episode.
That is a new angle as well, because we all, the ones who will talk about it have seen it many
Yeah.
times. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's
Let's
book
do
that.
that.
We'll do that
It's
for
a
sure.
bat
Yeah.
date. Good.
Yeah.
All right. So, everyone, thanks for watching the State of the DC Union. I'm Mario Francisco Robles of Superman on Film. That is Bill Jett Ramey of Batman on Film. And we'll see you next time.